Hey guys, still here and welcome back to Wargame. Today I'm going to be looking at Zodda's gameplay. This is a game that I actually already featured on the channel, but from a different perspective. That time I was playing my own game, or showing you my own game as it was on stream. I'm going to be operating towards Kilo and Hotel and to some extent in Foxtrot. Zodda, on the other hand, one of my Patreon supporters, was on the other hand of the other side of the map here. Left side, Echo, November, Lima. That was his area of operations. He's using an armored deck on this one. The USSR armored, so he has a lot of armored options in his deck. And he asked me to have a look at it and see how I think his gameplay can be improved. So I'm going to speed things up a little, see what he deploys and where. Yeah, we discussed a little bit about where to set up defenses. He's going to deploy a couple of ATGMs in here. See, this bridge can be a problem. It really depends on how aggressive you're going to be in crossing it and trying to push your way into Echo. At this point, your supply lines are, I think, equal to Blue's. Because Blue's coming in from Oscar has to travel either down this road or through this one. And arrives in Echo. Red 4 spawns in Charlie, has to go all the way over the bridge and then all the way north. So whichever unit you have to pick, keep in mind that they need to be able to get there. Anyway, about these ATGMs. Yes, they'll cover the bridge, and they'll do it very well. But if that's the case, then it's, as far as I'm concerned, a bit more of a last-ditch effort. Because that means that the enemy's already pushed you out of this sector and is working on or is already crossing the bridge. Now, let's see what he brings. 1987s, BMP-3s. These are good long-range ATGM fighters. They got the 2800 meter range, the Arcan. The 1987's 2625 with a lot of AP. Pretty good accuracy, but need to be still to fire it. What I'm missing over here is a super heavy. If you're going to be using an armored deck, then you need to have one unit which can take down anything else. And that would be the super heavy. I'm not seeing it over here. He does have a Tunguska and a Beryusa. Tunguska has the gun on. Recommend turning that off, because with the gun on, you're using your radar, and, well, let's say that Seed is quite happy to find a 85-point unit with a radar active. What else does he have? I saw a BRM-1K over there for reconnaissance. If that's the only recon that he has, and I think it is, then it's a bit light. If this one unit got knocked out, then you're not relying on anything other than the medium optics from your tanks. You don't have anything better to spot for you, so bring in more reconnaissance. Potentially, you could say, if I'm starting here, I'm going to send in a reconnaissance chopper and just scout over Elena that way. He's also using the Rozvedka, the Conkers over here. I'm not exactly sure where these are going, to be honest, because Leonid is already being covered by Atomic. So Atomic should not really need Conkers over here. And aside from that, the Conkers, if you want to perk them in this tree line, need a little bit more open terrain to really function well. Because while they do have the range to actually get all the way over here, they do have some line of sight obstructions. So with those, ATGM hits are less than guaranteed. Anyway, he moves up north. Urals are taking a scenic route. And the BRM-1K is lagging behind. I don't like this. I want to see optics up front. And I know this thing has exceptional optics, so it probably sees way more from over here than the tanks do from up there. But still, I want to see more reconnaissance. Oh, it's not fast moving anymore. There we go, it's not fast moving anymore. If you're using an armored deck, you gotta be aggressive. And that means you're going to have to push the contact. So you keep pushing until you run into something that starts shooting at you. And either you overrun it, or you fall back a little bit, and you give up as little terrain as possible. And what I'm seeing right now is a couple of T-72s sitting just over here in the woods and not doing anything too useful. By the way, the best tank that he has over here is the 1987. That's 18 frontal armor. Quite a few tanks can penetrate that. Helos can very easily get rid of it, and of course an enemy super heavy is going to be a massive problem because you can only damage it with the ATGM. And even then, you're not going to do too much damage. Now, he also has the Arcan, but the Arcan only does 21 AP, so again, you're going to be doing 1 damage. So, for actual pointers, bring your tanks up all the way to over here. There, 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 there. You have these tree lines. Use them. Keep pushing until you run into resistance. His forces over here are holding the bridge. Although the bridge doesn't really need holding, since we have a T-55M reconnaissance over there. So I'd say get your HGMs over here and maybe over there. And something like that will shut down this bridge. And not only this bridge, but that bridge as well. Right now, you're wasting the potential of these troops. And you're spending 25 each. Resvetka, you get the transports. So you're spending about 70 points here, which you don't really need. They would be much more effective over here. And by putting them over there, you're also making sure that Lennet is harder to capture. Now, it seems to be really quiet on this flank. No helo, no tank, nothing. Keep in mind that if your tanks are now here, the enemy tanks are quite possibly over here. And you might have infantry doing the same maneuvers you are, so they could be over here or even closer. In this case, I would be offloading my infantry just to get a little bit more information. Because the BMPs do have medium optics, but infantry usually can see a little more. And at least do a little bit more damage when they're outside the vehicle rather than in. Now, this is not a tactical game, so he does have a lot of points. Here comes a recon helo, HGM troops. These are currently being wasted. You need to move these up. And they're Sparky. You need to move these up. If you park those over here, they're going to be shutting down any flank offensive or flank-ish offensive that the enemy can do. This position could also work. And if you put them over here, then you have the best line of sight. And here we go. Here's the first engagement. The BMP-3 kills the tank. The Recon Leopard did return fire, but immediately got shot down by the BMP-3s. They now know where you are, though. That was a pretty bad shot. They're going to try it again. And this is where the lack of reconnaissance really comes into play. Bring a couple more Rosetka, because you need those cheap reconnaissance units. A couple of infantry units here, there, there. The more information you can get about the enemy, the better. This Recon Helo is slightly too far to the back. Keep that over here, because then it can complement the vision from the BRM-1K. And he's also bringing in more BMP-3s. I already mentioned it in the previous video, but on a map this large, you need to be planning about 3 to 5 minutes ahead, because that's how long it's going to take before your units actually arrive to the front line. So if you see a tank over here, then you already need to have units in position to deal with them, because if you're only going to call in something to deal with the Leopard 2A4 that was briefly visible at this point, then you're too late. And that Leopard can cause devastation to your units as long as you don't have a good counter to it. And again, I'm still missing a super heavy. You need to be more aggressive. You need to bring either a T-72BU or a T-80UM. Either will work on this terrain. T-80UM could be a bit more aggressive in the open terrain because it can get into cover faster. T-72BU is just a straight up slugfest. And I'm not really seeing more units come in yet. Let's speed it up a little. Oh, reconnaissance helo on the left. And your AA. This Tunguska will fire missiles, but aside from that, it is not very good positioned. The problem with the positioning over here is that its missile is turned off too. You can keep the missile turned on, just not the guns. The guns are ready to guide it. The missile system is quite accurate at long range, 50%. You got 8 of them, good range, 2975. That means you outrange a longbow and especially everything else. But off-road capability for Tunguska is not that good, let alone in the woods. So if you were to park it here, you could have easily killed off that enemy recon helo. The Birusa is perfectly well positioned over here. It's again not very good at off-roading, but in a position over here it can definitely assist in dealing with enemy infantry, especially if it's closer to the tree line here. You don't really need to use a Birusa for that. You can go for the cheaper Afghansky. And I think the Afghansky is available in the armored deck, so that would be another option. See, now you're being aggressive. This I like. He's pushing and seeing what else Sparky brought out. These guys have low veterancy, so it's not going to be some sort of elite unit. Tank wipes it out. Good combination of tanks and infantry to make sure that the tanks and the infantry can mutually support each other. I'd be leading with the infantry over here, not the tank. Because if there are, for example, Panzer Grenadier 90, then they can do a lot of damage to that tank and potentially even kill it. Whereas if you run into the infantry with your own infantry, the infantry will start to engage each other, then the tank rolls in and starts doing 4 HE per shot. And again, with a low amount of reconnaissance, you don't really know what's out here in this tree line. Now, to be fair, it is a very difficult area to fight in, because you got a lot of cover. And vision is not only limited by the trees, but also by this little dent that's in the terrain there. That would be the Leopard 2A4. He does do a damaging shot and retreats. Good call. Now, if your plan is to hold this position, then you actually already need to have resupplies in position. He does have them, but they're slightly too far behind. I'd say park them closer here, making sure you have easy access to them. Because this thing, if it would have been any closer to that Leopard 2A4, it would have been dead. Too much kinetic damage. But as it is now, it's going to be repaired. But it's going to take a little bit more time since your healing units, as they are too far behind. Oh, it was not just a 2A4. It's a 2A5 as well. Sparky sees the HEGM, backs away with the 2A4. Oh, this is too aggressive. A BRM 1K can perfectly well sit still, but it does not need to be that far to the front line. Now, more units coming in. A BMP 1K for command. Yeah, see, here's the problem. You don't really have anything to counter a 2A4 and especially a 2A5. Sure, the Modestroki could do it. Up close, they might stand a chance. But at this range, not at all. And you can bet your ass that that 2A5 is not going to be alone over there. He's going to have backup. Now, you really seem hell-bent on killing off that recon bird, which I don't mind. But if that Bereusa pokes out, then there's a very good chance that the Leopard immediately nails it. So if you want to kill it, go down. And then you can have a good angle and line of sight on the BO-105. If you move out to this part, you fire the gun, and the Leopard immediately shuts you down. Another 1987. See, they're not bad tanks. They're well-rounded, but they're just not good enough to counter a Leopard 2A5. You need something heavier for that. And a T-72BU or a T-80UM could definitely go toe-to-toe with those things. Lane is secured. Good call marking it out. I'm not exactly sure how comms was going at this point. It's been a little over a week. But it was a conquest game, so the kills were not as important as capturing terrain was. Now let's speed up a little. This looks like we got a MiG-25. What are your plans with this? I think he's going to do a cluster run on the Leopard. Oh, contacts. What do we have here? Panzer Grenadiers. And a Marder 183. Nails one Marder. Marder and infantry return fire. The tank also returns fire. Let's see how much AA response there is. Too much. That wounded the Leopard. So the 2A5 is going to be out of the fight for a bit. You got one Marder at the expense of two groups of Modestroki 90. See, this is where the Bereusa and the BMP-3s can come in really handy. There's the CV. Yep, it has to be. It's either going to be here or on any of the other ridge lines, or tree lines. That was just an Iltis reconnaissance vehicle. And this is where the lack of reconnaissance becomes painfully obvious. Hold on, these are Mi-24 Deltas carrying recon infantry. The Mi-24D is a pretty good helo. It's an older version of the Mi-24. It has old HEGMs, which are generally really don't like. Unless you're fighting in some sort of older era-limited deck. But other than that, their accuracy is dreadful. Don't fire them at the move at all or you're going to lose them. And, well, the Yak B's alright, the Rocket Pods are alright, but other than that I don't really like that helo. And I don't really see why you want to be transporting reconnaissance infantry in it. Now the Panzer Grenadiers seem to have really taken a lot of damage. The Motostrelki have also taken at least one tank round. Because that is too much damage that a Martyr and a couple of infantry guys can do. There goes another Iltis. See, Sparky's definitely building up his reconnaissance capability over here. I know that there's at least one Iltis. Potentially it's the same one. But I'm thinking it's probably not. So he has these two Iltises and one reconnaissance helo. Versus your capability of one MI2. Now these things have very good optics. You can really be certain that he knows your helicopter is there too. But so far it's just a bit of standoff. That's a Menkati backing away from the tree line that you just clustered. So that Leopard 2A5 is pretty much going to be repaired. So let's assume it's healthy again. Now, what's the plan going to be? Because I think that at this point he might not have a plan. If I were in this situation, I would want to see, okay, what's my next 2 or 3 moves going to be? I want to be a little bit more aggressive with these tree lines, because I want to deny the enemy the capability of capturing this sector. So, I'm going to need more reconnaissance to see what's out here. So step 1, bring more recon. Oh, that's a bad move for the Tiger. Step 1, bring more recon. Step 2, bring mortars. Because as it is, my tanks are being spotted. 1 HGM aircraft, and I can start kissing my tanks goodbye. And keep in mind that a tank killed takes a lot of time to come back from center. It takes a lot of time to move one vehicle from all the way over there. Meaning that 1 tank loss can be critical. So I need more reconnaissance, but I also need more vision defense, in the sense that I need smoke screens. So I need mortars, and potentially a bit more AA infantry, or a couple more Bruises. Because this thing is probably spotting quite a lot. I don't want to switch to Sparky's view because it's going to reset the kill counter. But I think it is spotting a little bit more than I would like him to see. Although the units are currently all blinking, which means they're not detected. So there's one Rozvedka group and another. If you want to bring Rozvedka in airborne, I would go for a cheaper helicopter variant, not the Mi-24D, because you're paying 55 for a, well, virtually useless helicopter. They're really not that good. Go for something cheaper. Here comes the air wave. What do we have? That's a tornado. Dropping on top of the tank. Oh, it's a combined offensive. It's Martijntje and Sparky and an ECR, which proceeds to nail the Tunguska and the Briusa, and now you have no AA left. Nothing. If he were to go aggressive and spot with this helicopter and send in a Thunderbolt or 2, you'd have a real problem. I'm just trying to counter with the SU-27S. He might get one more. There we go, that's the MLU. The other one narrowly escapes. Alright, let's see. It's 2240 when he calls in additional AA units. So 2240. I'm writing that down to see how long it takes the units to get from the spawn zone, which is not here, it's all the way over there, to the front line. Anyway, I was describing my plan of attack. This would be the 2A5. Smoke, AA, more reconnaissance. And then I would want to start moving up towards this tree line. I want this area. From there, I can start to be a little bit more threatening on Nicholas. I can move my infantry closer to there. Because my ultimate objective is going to be this town. And potentially parking some ATGMs in there. Capturing it is not going to be easy, but that's what you have the mortars and the smoke for. So you can smoke up the position. You can engage it potentially with long-range artillery. And once you're virtually guaranteed that the enemy can't see anything, you start to push in with your infantry. Offload them in front of the smoke, and you move away. In the meanwhile, he's struggling to deal with a couple of leopards. Sparky's on the offensive here. His Conkers so far are not getting shot at because the T-72B1 is too busy working over a Leopard T-72... Sorry, a Leopard... Yeah, right. A T-72B1, which is really not capable of doing anything. Because... actually, it was an older tank. Does he have another T-72B1 coming in by any chance? He does not. Who here has a T-72B1? I need the stats of that unit. T-80UM. I think nobody has a tank like that currently deployed on the battlefield. Here's the problem. 19 frontal armor. These things could do 18, and this is a newer variant. So a T-72B1 has no chance against the Leopard 2A4 at maximum range. The Leopard 2A4 is now done killing the tank, and will now start to take aim at your infantry, and will wipe them out with one shot. There goes one squad. The squad loses line of sight, the missile loses guidance, missile veers off. The other Conkers is out of ammo. The 2A4 is heavily damaged, the 2A5 is perfectly healthy. And we got another 2A4 coming in. Now, if he's lucky, the Modestrelki might just have the range. He's trying to make a play for it. Sparky seems to recognize his mistake. Backs away with the tank. See, this is really not going to be that successful. Look at the accuracy. 23. You're looking at 16 AP on this missile. You're looking at 19 frontal armor, which means it's always going to negate the damage. But these are heat missiles, so they're always going to do 1. One missile hits, 1 damage. You're going to need to fire 10 of those missiles at this 2A4 before it finally caves. Your helos won't be around for long enough. Now, aside from that, this thing just got hit by a missile. They fortunately have quite a bit of armor on them for a helicopter, 1 frontal armor. The other one did not get hit, but the splash damage did damage the helo. These things are too close together. Try to spread out your helos a little bit more, making sure they don't get splashed. And, ooh, that was close. He's going to do that again. There we go. 1. That was the other one. I gotta say, these things are survivable. One down. The other one narrowly escaped. But see, this is why I don't like the Mi-24D. They're virtually useless in their current effective, or in their combat role of trying to deal with tanks. Sure, they were effective in that role in 1972, when the enemy didn't have that much armor yet. But we're now at, I think, a maximum of 2004, 2005 with the Leopard 2A5 and Leopard 2A4. And it just becomes a whole different problem. The Mi-24 Delta with their flight missiles are just no longer adequate. Now he's now randomly shelling the assumed position of the BMP-1K command, and he's accurate. He made a run on the Mi-24D. Look at what's happening here. He has 2 reconnaissance helos, the Tiger and the BO-105 from Sparky. The Apache pushes forward, expecting very little resistance from AA, as he took down the AA systems that were in the region, the Tunguska and the Beryusa. With those out of the way, he can very freely push up with reconnaissance, spot tanks, and wipe them out either with Hellfires, with the Hot 2. The other Hot 2, the escort can go to town on anything that is not that heavily armored with the M230 or the rocket pods. So you are really in the shit now, and there's not really any quick way to save you. You could go for aircraft, and there is an Su-27 coming in. But the problem is that the enemy also has aircraft. And they are already patrolling, especially that Block 15. They're there to dissuade and also to be quick. Well, not... No, he's not going for it yet. Anyway, an air response against the helicopters is only going to yield an air response from Blue 4. And you can see that happening. So there goes the Su-27. Yep, he gets killed off. He's down. So still, you have the helicopters pushing in. And now you have no way of countering those. The helos are not effective. The Tunguska, take note of the time, 26:59. That is a whole 4 minutes later than when you ordered it. That's how long it takes to get a unit from the spawn zone, there, all the way to over here. So my 4-minute estimation was quite accurate. At this point, he can still shut you down if he brings in more more seed. And Sparky is rushing you through the woods with infantry, back to the Martyrs 2 and 1A3s. So there's really very little that you can do. And there goes the ECR. Tunguska is active. Tunguska gets killed off. The Bryusa is fortunately not active. BMB-1K gets detected. Now the Bryusa is active and gets killed off by the second tornado. And that just leaves you with 2 reconnaissance, or 2 AA infantry. And the entire force got wiped out. So what went wrong here were a couple factors. 1, no super heavy. Without that, you had no way of countering the 2A5. 2, you didn't have enough vision. You didn't really know what was operating here. And granted, it's not an easy area to move through or to have a look at. But you don't really know what the enemy has. Just with 1 BRM-1K or 2 potentially and a recon helo, you're not well enough informed about what's going on here. 3, not enough AA, and especially not enough ways to shut down enemy airplanes, because they were circling over here. And sure enough, seed is annoying, but there are other ways of defeating enemy helicopters, such as infrared in AA, either from a Tunguska or from infantry. You also had no mortars, and with no mortars, your tanks, even if they were detected, and you didn't have any AA, you could still smoke them up to make sure that they wouldn't die immediately. You can buy yourself some time. I don't think you could buy yourself 4 minutes worth of time, but you need a couple of, let's say maybe 30 to 40 seconds to get into this tree line. And then it would be much more difficult for the enemy ATGMs to actually find you. So that's another way of treating a sector like Elena. Now we have a couple of T-72s coming in. These are just cannon fodder, really. They're not going to be effective against anything that's coming down this path, short of the infantry and the Martyrs. If a Leopard 2A5 runs across one of these things at max range, then they have no chance. If by some miracle they encounter it up close, they will probably kill it. But not without the loss of at least 1, probably 2 tanks. Now let's see if he brings in any additional units. MTLBVs, T-55s, again with the 1987s. Wrong unit. You need something heavier. Another BRM-1K, BMP-3. See, they're not bad units in and of themselves, but they don't have all the elements that they need. And something else that I'm, again, lacking is AA. Your first group here got shut down and shot down basically by ATGMs, helicopters, airplanes. Sending in another group, unescorted ground vehicles, no AA, is just asking for that to happen again. And another problem here, slow this down, is that you're leading with a tank. Those 2A4s, and this is another 2A4. You can sort of make out the shape of the turret, which tells me it's a 2A4. They know you're there, and they get the first shot off, and you're just there to take it. It does do some damage, but only 1 hit point. ATGMs get dropped off. This one's going to die any second. He tries to get a shot off, does 2 damage. Leopard takes a couple of missiles. These are much more damaging than Flyta. And as such, they will do severe damage to the 2A4. Probably killing it. There we go, that's one 2A4 down. Where's your 2A5? There's your 2A5. Here comes the aircraft again. There's a Block 15 OCU. That's another AT plane. Doesn't really have a priority target, so it just goes with C-72s. Wipes all of them out. Of course, in combination with the 2A1 and the 2A5. 2A5 takes a missile, doesn't really care. It has enough armor and it negates the damage done by the missile. More Mi-24Ds are rushed in. Here comes another MiG-25. Cluster bomb dropped. Narrowly makes it out. 2A5 takes severe damage. He's going to be under repair for quite a bit of time. But rushing in reconnaissance helos, or helos carrying recon infantry, into an AA infested area is only going to end one way. If the enemy actually takes Elena, and you're this late into the game, don't bother. Because, as I just displayed, your units take 4 minutes to get from here to there, let alone to over there. That would be probably another 2 to 3 minutes. So at this point, any new unit that you spawn in only is going to have, at a best, 2 minutes of combat time. Because that's the time that we have left on the game. So at this point, and pretty much, I'd say 5 minutes ago, ignore the sector. And that is for more than one reason, because not only are your forces no longer going to be effective, because they won't get there, or they'll just get 2 minutes of combat time by the time that they do, but there's another reason. Sparky has devoted quite a few units to this sector. They, if you don't engage them, are now useless, and they now need to make their way down the bridge, and that's something you can defend. So in this case, try to zoom out a little bit. Estimate how long it takes for one unit to get from one end to another, and calculate if it's still going to be effective to send units over there. Because these units, they're more of a distraction than anything else. Sparky, and to an extent Martijn as well, who's backing him up, they can just sit back, defend this area, because they have Elena. They don't need to push. You do. So they're in a much more comfortable position. But Strelky rushing in. That's at least one mortar. That's possibly 2 mortars. And that's no more infantry. Don't attack. It just doesn't really matter at this point. And with an armored deck, if you only have 7 minutes left at this point of the game, it doesn't really matter what you send where, because it's never going to arrive in time. That's what makes these enormous maps quite tricky to play. Because you have to be thinking so far ahead. And it's not just, oh, I'm going to bring in a new unit and it's going to be here in 2 minutes. No, you're fighting the clock as well. And the clock can be just as bad as an enemy super heavy. PMP-3 pushes, tries to fire a missile, Leopard shuts it down, tries to fire back. He's going to get one more shot off and then the Leopard kills him. Leopard is about to fire. Oh, he misses. Well, no. You should have killed him. Leopard's going to take out one of Concours. There goes one of your Concours. He's going to take out half of the infantry squad. Ooh, oh, he got lucky there. Next. Really? That is one lucky BGS guy. Jesus. I know he's a bit worried, but it's an infantryman standing still. See, these are never going to arrive. 2 Tunguskas, 6 units of infantry, they're not going to get there. Not in 6 minutes. At this point, if you have a couple of points remaining, and you want to try and do something useful, either bring aircraft or helicopters, because everything else is not going to be fast enough. Now, here comes Rip. And I already covered this part on video before. But since there's nothing really going on the left, Rip had saved up quite a few units of armor and is now throwing them at my, well, what's left of my lines over here. And that's not going to really end well for me. I get a couple of hits, a couple of damaging shots in, but I just get overrun in a pretty bad way. Anyway, summarizing, more recon, more smoke, more AA, and more aggressive. And most important of all, bring a plan. Because you can send your units over here to Elena, and if you don't really have a plan of where to go next, then you're just going to be sitting there. So my stepping stone would be tree lines. Next tree lines. Again, bring smoke. This set of trees over here, this little forest. Tree lines again. This forest. And then moving up towards the town. Now he got 1,572 points in kills, 3,500 in losses. Let's see what caused most of his losses, because that's what I'm interested in. 2A5. 2A5, 2A5, 2A5 again, 2A5, 2A5. If you'd have brought a super heavy and put more pressure on this 2A5, then it couldn't have been as damaging as it was. Other high numbers of losses I'm expecting from aircraft. F-16 MLU, Tornado ECR, Tornado IDS, another Tornado IDS, AH-64TD, that's the tank destroyer. Escort. AH-64TD, Tiger. Escort, ECR, Escort. The biggest threat to an armored deck is usually coming from the air. And if the airborne deck knows that you have no AA left, then they're just going to roll right over you. And that's exactly what you saw happen here. Yep. Alright, so I hope this was useful. If you're a newer player, then by all means try to take as many of these points into consideration, but don't overwhelm yourself. Just pick out 2 or 3 points that you think, I'm going to focus just on these things in my next match. If you're a more experienced player, then by all means let me know down below in the comments what I missed and what you think you could have done different or better. Just make sure you keep it polite. Stuff like, oh my god, this is terrible, is not really helping anybody. And I'll just delete stuff like that. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon for more videos.